I always valued this idea of enabling everyone to build tools, enabling builders.
You have to love the problem more than the solutions. You can be a developer and not a coder.
That's exactly what you are pointing at is you can code something which is badly engineered, it's going to not perform well, and it's going to potentially break. And you can also badly engineer a no-code solution that's also going to break, but you can also nicely engineer a no-code solution that will yield like tremendous results.
You can build API in hours, where you used to do that in weeks, maybe months before. That's a game changer.
I'm super excited to have both of you, Miguel and Frédéric. So first question, Frédéric, is it okay if I call you Fred during this interview?
Yes, for sure.
So maybe before we get into the different topics that we have for today, one thing that I would really like is if we can just take a few minutes to give a quick background about who you guys are and what you've done, and especially why you are, what's your connection with the whole topic of no-code, low-code, AI. So basically, I will start with myself to not put you on the spot, and then we can go with Miguel and then with Fred. So basically, my name is Pierre, but people call me Piv. I am one of the co-founders of 9X. And what we do at 9X is we train business teams on AI and automation. And the reason why we're doing this is we believe that knowing how to use technology, and especially no-code and AI, is the most important skill of the current years. As for my background, I personally have no technical background whatsoever. I studied business. I spent 7 years in business positions, started startups and scale-ups. But deep down, I'm a geek. So I think I missed a step. I should have become an engineer, but I didn't. Anytime I have an opportunity to play around with tech topics, I go for it. So obviously, once I started and met no-code, then I became very quickly a no-code addict. I come from the business and automation world, but we did a few internal tools and applications project when we still were an agency, a no-code agency, 9X, before we moved towards fully enablement focus. I'm very excited about talking about both of you because you have more knowledge about building proper software. I think you have surpassed the challenges that I've met. So I'm really, really keen on learning more about you. Maybe Miguel, can you give us a little understanding of what your role at Naviu is, what you do, and what your journey was from, your studies to now where you are today?
Sure. So I'll start with my background. Hi, I'm Miguel Coquet. I am a software engineer by training. I started my career about 20 years ago. I did the software engineering CS course direction. And I started companies, started working remote really early. I started a software engineering agency by accident, and then that stuck, and I ran it for 10 years. And then things happened, life changed, and I decided recently to merge with Naviu. So that's how I joined Naviu. My connection to no-code is not recent. When I started my agency back then, I was already looking at ways and tools for the new type of coding. So for me, it's not a new connection. I always valued this idea of enabling everyone to build tools, enabling builders. I always looked at myself as a person in a service position. Engineering is also always a service position. You're building for something, for medicine, for construction, for anything, for any business, really. I always valued this idea of enabling others. That's my connection to no-code. At Naviu, I'm a CTO, which means that I essentially drive technology, but I also drive product a little bit. So very boutique agency. We're not a big team. And so that's sort of my position. I transition clients in facilitating technology conversations.
Awesome. And did you use no-code before, or was it like as joining Naviu that you started building on this? And what share of this are you currently involving into your different projects?
I am and I'm not. So my position at Naviu is very much being at the forefront of trying to understand where the technology is going. So right now it's less no code, more AI coding. We could call it vibe coding. I don't really like the term.
We'll dig into that later.
I know. But yeah, it is looking at these, being forward facing. So looking at the future, looking at how to prepare the company for it, prepare the team for it. It involves a lot of internal training and that sort of thing. I'm not actively building. I'm more architecting and
okay, but that's very helpful for what I want to discuss today. Maybe before we go into the heart of the Fred, can you tell us a bit about yourself and how you ended up here today?
Yes, sure. First of all, thank you very much for the invitations for this talk. So I'm Fred and Najman. Basically, I'm an engineer, so I come from the tech side. And I think it's interesting because in the no-code area, we met a lot of people from different backgrounds. And so on my side, I'm come from the tech side. I did a specialization in artificial intelligence, much more before the buzzwords that is today. I more work on the computer vision side and neural networks. So I am more technical side of the AI, and that I'm very happy to see today that that it's become more democratized. After all, I work for startup and also for a lot of projects for corporate, like big enterprise, big project. I also wrote book about Java. I was mentor at Google Campus. So I have a long trend also working with people like C-levels, uh, PO, project owners. So I'm not only tech, I also used to talk. And like Miguel, I think we have this profile that we can talk about tech, but we love to try to solve also problem. And myself, I love problem more than love solutions, like the founder of Waze are saying all the time. You have to love the problem more than the solutions, and that's it. How long I'm in the no code? First of all, I think we all started no code a long time ago. It's a long train. For me, it was like less code. I want to say before low code and no code. So it's a long time that all the developers try to write less code. I
Mhm.
think a good developer is a lazy one. So we always want to work faster and code less. So it's long time, but I really started when Bubble started. It was not that technical. It was like almost 10 years ago now. It's become more serious. And I saw the potential really. And I'm not surprised that today, no code, low code, visual programming, I don't know how you want to call it. But for me, I put it everything in like a kind of modern programming stack and where I will put the AI and the vibes coding. So let's say I started almost 10 years ago.
It's super interesting because I have no engineering background whatsoever, as I mentioned, but there's some common thread. For example, when we go and look for people to recruit at 9X, the one thing I look for is actually also like lazy people. I really believe that, people, and especially problem solvers, so that's the kind of people we want, is whenever you're facing something that is cumbersome or we need to do a lot of things manually, you should be lazy, because being lazy will push you to actually try to use technology to solve things for you. And I think that's one of the common threads. One of the great things I see about these all the no code, the low code, the AI solutions that are emerging, they are making technology more and more useful to solve human problems, so you can actually focus more on the creativity side of things. See this whole combination, because you mentioned no code, low code. I've heard some people talking about few code. Did you have a thesis around, how to interact with the different solutions out there, and especially like in different contexts, when you build the startups, when you're inside a larger organization, when you're building software for others, like in the case of Miguel? Does any one of you have a specific framework around this that you want to share?
I have a structured approach, but it's not explicit. I always go root problem, root cause analysis, let's say it like that. I try to look at what the need is, what the desire or need is. I try to break it down into the environment and the people that are going to be affected by this. And when I say affected, I mean using. Like, is this meant for who is going to be building, who is going to be using, how is the life cycle going to be for them, and can they manage it? That environment dictates a little bit the solution space. So, for example, if you're looking at something more batteries included, like Xano, I look for if the user, the builder or the maintainer, is knowledgeable enough and can learn or is available to learn learning curve. Also, another thing is the problem itself. Is the reason we're here because, and this is a very common scenario, the reason we're here might be because the old tools are failing them. This is an extremely common scenario where people built something and they're outgrowing that something that was built. So they now need to figure out what the next steps are. For that, obviously, more batteries included tools come in. It's very much now analyzing the scenario, figuring out the people that are going to be using it, the people that are going to be building it, how often they expect to have to change this, and what that life cycle will look like.
Absolutely. I fully agree. Maybe if I can add something also about the legacy. When you arrive in enterprise, for example, you arrive, there is still something in place, still legacy, and you have to deal with that. So you have to choose the right stack for that, and also the compliance, because in some project you have some compliance, for example, medical compliance. You should be compliant with medical data, GDPR or whatever. Also choosing the stack. And just to repeat what said Miguel, but also the people that will use it, it's super important. We see that with the no code, you can come from different side, more from the business logic side, or sometimes from the tech side, or sometimes also you want to make up skills in your company or in your teams, because some no-code stack are really accessible to everyone, more or less, I want to say. And so that's super interesting to do this analyze. I'm very happy to see that some agency like Naviu don't jump directly to answer a no-code stack, but they analyze also who are the team that will work it, what the legacy problem is. And nowadays, there is so many solutions about it that we have the chance that to have a great stack. Like 10 years ago, it was not the case. But nowadays, we have really very powerful solution. There is more than 1,000 solutions I get on the market.
And how do you go into these kind of projects? You said you will look at the people, and based on the people who are going to use or going to build, or both, then you select the stack. But do you think it's going to be easier for you or for your team to specialize on some specific stacks? Or do you think actually my team should learn how to use different type of stacks? And how do you balance, the specialization and the efficiency and the expertise you can gain into one specific stack versus the ability to, be more agile or leverage another solution that fits better the problem, but maybe, it doesn't fit less the people? How do you balance that?
The reality is you're not going to know everything. But also the reality is there are enough offers and enough possibilities. All the functionality you need can be found in an infinite combination of tools. But you can take a slice of the market and select a few tools that give you the whole breadth, and you just specialize on those. I'm a firm believer in having blessed technologies at an organization, because that really gives, so not just thinking of the agency level, I'm thinking also in any organization. So in previous organizations that I belonged in, the ones that functioned best in this to avoid technology sprawl was where there was this consideration of, we want to build these types of tools to solve these types of problems. And for that, we need to bless enough technologies. Let's say we need a full stack environment. So we need to be able to build backends and frontends. So that means mostly we're going to be building web apps. Okay, Python is a good choice. C is maybe not a great choice. JavaScript is also a good choice. You can sort of pick and choose. There's options on all sides, but you don't have to say we allow all technologies, because then that's going to generate people with everyone choosing whatever they want and make it hard to train, make it hard to understand costs. It just makes everything more complicated. So that's the number one thing. I want to touch really quickly on what so just to expand a little bit what I mean with who's going to use it. Most times, it's not about the user just browsing through the screens, right? It's about who's going to run it. I'll give you a quick example. In some situations, the ask from the client is literally, I want to be able to kind of tweak it as I move forward. So that is a conversation that we need to have. If they want to have that enablement, we need to figure out a way that is compatible with what they want and does the result that they need.
We have mentioned a couple of times already, Xano, I see you have a Xano t-shirt here. So when it comes to the stack, what part of the stack does Xano cover, and what's the take that Xano has taken on this no-code development approach?
Yeah, so maybe I forgot to say that I'm also working for Xano. So Xano, it's a backend, okay? And you have different family of tools in the no-code industry, and Xano is specialized on the backend. That means Xano can manage, it's a kind of a platform where you can build your API, you can build your database, you can manage all the infrastructure and follow when it comes to scale. The platform is scaling with the project. And so it's covering also a lot of compliance and security. So it's a platform that includes all of that, all the business logic, all the data, all the access of the API point that you will need, you will find it in Xano in one. And in the other side, that is not Xano, but you have the front end that will connect with Xano and make the interface for it. Maybe I wanted just to add a small point about the question you asked just before. There is something that is really interesting with this visual programming, no code / low code. That, I mean, the big part of a project is to understand the need of the customer, the problem, write the business logic. But with the no code, it comes super quick now to build the solutions. That means if ever you have to change the stack for X, Y, Z reason, it could be pretty quick to change it and to redesign with another tools. And that's a game changer, I think. Compared to before, that Miguel gave the example about C or Java or Python, that it was long to build the solutions with this kind of stacks. That's so you have to really be careful before starting. Nowadays, you can imagine that, okay, I will take Xano like a backend, and Xano is so powerful, you can build API in hours, where you used to do that in weeks, maybe months as before, that you have the right to make a mistake, I want to say. You have more the right to make the mistake when you choose the stack. That's a game changer, because the pressure for the CTO before, that you have to choose all the stack before just starting to write one line of code, was big pressure. And nowadays, you can imagine, we know that it's like the evolution will be still amazing in the next years, but it's okay because we didn't consume so much time for building the initial version.
And I have a follow-up question on that, because if it becomes so easy to build and to deploy, and actually you can change more often or you can swap, isn't there the risk that you're going to build more stuff which are maybe not necessary?
I guess yes, but this just puts more emphasis on what Fred was saying. It's very important to take on these guidelines of what am I building and for? What goal am I going for? Making sure you're building the right thing instead of just anything. Because right now it's very fast to build the wrong thing. It still takes some time to have those discussions to understand what the team actually needs, what the business actually needs. A common scenario we talk to almost daily is the team has built over a few years a lot of business knowledge, trying out things in no-code tools, and they have now this immense knowledge of what actually works. And so now building something else on another stack is pretty quick and easy because they've already mapped out all of the paths. It's a straight line now. What really takes time to kind of mature is that understanding of the problems and the systems you're building.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point. And when I listen to what we've just discussed so far, making it faster to build software sounds a lot like this is something that you would highly leverage either in a startup environment where actually, you haven't found a product market fit yet, so you need to iterate fast on the product. Or in the case if you have an agency and obviously, you're selling kind of time. So if you can say, it's going to take me the same time as a traditional software development, but actually you spend less, that's insane margin. Are these the only type of user or customer base that a company like Xano has? Or do you also have larger corporate, larger innovation? Like, is no code only for quick and dirty or agency? Or is it also something that you can deploy to larger enterprise organizations?
Yeah, no, for sure. I'm not an agency, but I can answer for the agency if you don't mind. I want to say, you're right. You're right. Yeah. Maybe you will do it quicker, but also you will do more projects, because what we see nowadays, that in the enterprise or even for startup, even for MVP or whatever, it was very hard when you have a small budget for an entity in a company. There is so many internal project that was canceled because it's too expensive and not enough, and it's kind of, in the middle that the projects can be. And nowadays you can call your agency and say, okay, I have a small budget, maybe 50, 100,000 K, and you still can do something seriously today with that. So I think maybe the agency, we have shorter cycle for project, but much more project. And so I think it's super interesting. And about your question, for sure, at Xano, we are absolutely all kind of project size. We have big company like Decathlon, BNP, or like System U, it's very known in Europe, and that's super big project corporate. It's become very horizontal to any and a lot are coming for very big company. But because internally they see the benefits to bring this kind of stack and especially to give the capabilities to the business to create their own solutions and internal tools, and also avoiding a maximum the shadow IT. And in the other side, you see that it's absolutely amazing also for them, because there is many startup. Sometimes is only one CEO, sometimes one CEO with a CTO, sometimes very small teams. And when you see that the CEO, for example, or the CPO that have a technical understanding, they can start to build their own solutions, and sometimes even without going to specifications, because when you have to work with the CTO, you need to write all the specifications to give to the CTO, so he understand your what you do, what the problem is. But if you are in the same time the CEO and the CTO, I want to say, because you have the no-code stack under your hand, and you can start to build something that goes so faster. So when we say it's faster, it's not only to develop the solutions, but it's also upfront. You don't have to go too much in specification, DevOps, creating a server. So everything was a bit pain before. It become faster. So at the end of the day, all the cycle is quicker, shorter.
You mentioned shadow IT. Like, what's shadow IT?
Okay, shadow IT is a kind of nightmare for any IT services in the world. So shadow IT, it means when someone in the company started to write his own solution. In general, I can give you an example, Excel. Yeah, let's go to the human resources, for example, or the accounting. So why? Because they're asking to the IT, please, IT services, I need the tools that converts my blah, blah, blah to blah, blah, blah. But the IT services in most of the company are full of projects and I mean, understaffed. So they put it on the table months and months and months before they can even open the request in the company. So what's happened? Because in general, the human resources know Excel very well. He started to build his own Excel sheets, and it's enough. So when you go in the big company, you see that there is much, much, much more small tools. And the worst scenario, sometimes they're even hiring a small agency to make these tools without even ask to the IT. So why it's a nightmare? Because the IT discovered that in the company there is many tools, totally insecure. Sometimes it even open vulnerabilities inside the companies. That's the worst scenario. And the common scenario is that they can maintain nothing when there is some turnover in the staff. Nobody knows about it. No documentation. So with the no stack in the enterprise, you give something a little bit, you give a standard possibility to develop tools, but it's standardized, it's secure, and the IT can have an eyes on it also. And so it's like I give you a toys, not a toys, don't want to say that, a powerful toys that you can, like you used to do with Excel, you can do it with, like, for example, Xano and WeWeb and Bubble and many stuff like that. But IT validate the choice.
Yeah, and I just want to I just want to flip on something you said, because you mentioned that the IT departments in large organization, they are full of projects, and actually it's not just a problem in large organization, it's also like a problem in general. There's not enough software engineers in the world to build all the software that especially the business world is needing. I think that there's also the bunch of software that the world in general is needing, but first it's gonna go to the business world. Do you think that no code is just a way to make it accessible to more people and to solve that potential problem?
Sure.
And,
I think
Absolutely.
that's a direct answer.
yeah. And for you, for example, Miguel, does it mean that you can now consider hiring people who don't have computer science training, and you're a software engineering company,
could.
you are building software, and then basically you would just hire people and train them into being like a no-code builder?
Absolutely. You have to focus on thinking that this is a professionalized service which means that when a client company comes to us, they're looking for a specialized, more enhanced sort of service than what they can train in-house easily.
Yeah. So you're saying no code is not specialized, or?
No. I mean, I'm trying to distinguish the difference between hiring someone internally to be an entrepreneur in residence, let's say like that, who is a builder, who can go, it doesn't need a full-on CS course. He has a proven track record. Let's say you bought his company, his startup to join your system, and you hire that knowledge in-house. Another thing is you have that and you need specialized support. And then when you're coming to an agency, you have that expectation of a higher quality of service so that they can sort of be the specialist that you need at that moment. So what that means is not necessarily that we need CS degrees. We don't care too much about CS degrees. What we try to do is make sure that everyone that joins, and internally also train for that, has that breadth of knowledge that is required to be that specialist. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. On what you see on the Xano user side, do you have mostly only, like Miguel was mentioning, basically software engineers that kind of graduate into no code because it's just more efficient, faster, and it solves more problem, or it just allow the IT department to handle more projects? Or do you also see I think that like citizen developers, like people from people like me who come from the business side, and they feel like, hey, I should have become an engineer anyway, so now I have this tool, I can start building software.
So for sure we have both of it. Sorry, the answer is not very sure.
It's never like this.
We have both of it, but they don't do the same. This is first of all, you can be a developer and not a coder. That's the difference. Before, if you wanted to become a developer, you have to become first a coder. When I started to learn in engineering school to become a developer, the first things you learn to code. Nowadays, you see how you teach development to kids. You can start to learn at 7 or 8 years old in the primary school. They learn only with cube. They learn to do loop and function. So this is the proof that you can learn to develop without becoming a coder. But before, you have to learn the language to express development things. So now, it's like for kids, with the no code, you can become a developer without never learn to code. And that makes the difference, because I want to say in the job of a developer, coding was probably one of the most painful, and especially because the language. So if you're a little bit frustrated because you think you have the logic and the capacities to become a developer, but you don't have the times to learn to code because it takes time. You need to practice a lot. And this is a very nice solution in Xano. Everything, it's become visual. So when you have to create database access, API, whatever, you can do it visually without writing one line of code, if it's enough for you. But for sure, it's also developer friendly, coder friendly, I want to say. So you can also expand the initial capabilities by coding. So the answer is the citizens developer that we saw, actually that use Xano, it's super interesting because they do amazing things, because they have, and in the enterprise, even in the business team, you always see that people have the logic. They know their business and they can express it very quickly on a paper. So if you can do it on a paper, you can do it in Xano and other no-code stack like Xano. But when it's come to something more technical, because you need to connect to the legacy, there is security. So this is when we need to use more people with developer, I want to say CS background, and that's fine. It's still new, but when you know that you can take citizens developers with a good training upfront, they can do a part of the jobs to, I want to say, the computer science people. That's amazing, because that free up sometimes for the IT. And when the IT is not afraid about it, they are super happy, because what they see is that they free up sometimes to be more efficient on what they count from them. And that's really, really good.
That's something I often say when people, and it's funny because I don't build software. I don't consider I build software. I build automation sometimes, and use a bit of AI. But oftentimes, I mean, I like to say, no code doesn't mean no engineering. And I think that's that's exactly what you are pointing at is you can code something which is badly engineered, it's gonna not perform well, and it's gonna potentially break. And you can also badly engineer a no-code solution that's also going to break, but you can also nicely engineer a no-code solution that will yield like tremendous results. Potentially, there's always going to be a point maybe where if you're using a stack which is not optimized for what you're trying to do, I think it's the same like as when you're coding. If you're using a framework which is not exactly meant to be especially performant for this, you're gonna hit some limits. But I'd be interested well to know, like, is that something that you agree with? And whenever you hit these limits, what do you do?
So these limits are always there, whether you are building with no code tools or with full code tools. What you're building for a certain moment is not what you need in 5 years from now, because your needs grow with you, no matter what you're using to build. Software is always a bit more like gardening. It never really exists in a vacuum. It never stops growing, because with use, you need to maintain it, you need to expand it, you need to change it with your organization. A software is usually a reflection of some part of the organization. And so the software you're building today, the only guarantee is that it will not be serving your team at some point. It will change, whether you're building full code or no code. Now, specifically the no code evolution situation, if you're looking at software like this, the philosophy is always keep growing. What is the next evolution of this? What is useful for now? What do I need next? Not necessarily what do I need 10 years from now. It's always what do I need next? If you keep that as your philosophy, then you start to find your boundaries and expand on them. Let's say you're hitting the limit on your Airtable product that you built on Airtable. You're hitting the boundaries on number of rows. You have options, but one of them is, okay, what do I do next? Is it full code? Is it low code? Is it no code? Is it Xano? Is it something else? So it's always what is next in your evolution and not necessarily what is absolutely correct. I don't believe in absolutely correct. I believe in what solves problems.
Okay. So we have been so far in the discussion, and I have a major bomb to drop right now. First, it's 2025. We haven't almost mentioned AI a single time. And second, do you agree with me if anything we've said so far about no code is actually true to AI? Like if we take the whole recording and everything we said about everything about what we've just discussed is actually true about AI as well. What's your take on this? Like for you, is AI the new no code? Is it a new evolution? What's your feeling about AI and how it relates to no code?
I feel like, because if you notice, the conversation has always been has been so far very much that direction, philosophy. And I feel like this applies with whatever tools are next. It seems like the next wave is AI, and that's undeniable. It's changing how we see everything, how we build everything, and how we interact with everything. However, the same principles apply.
And how do you use it internally? Inside of Naviu, does your team use AI every day? They have to use AI every day. And what are the examples of tools that you use with AI?
Oh, okay. So I think I can say this. So we use a lot integrated tools like the new Gemini chat, for example, that can look into our Drive documents. It can look into our emails. It can look into our docs. And that's super useful, and also has canvas mode. Deep research is amazing. That's just like I just mentioned tools that are very generic, right? They help everyone in the team do anything they need at that moment. Now, more specialized tools. On the full code projects, we use Cursor a lot. We're also exploring Klein with VS Code. We have some projects with Lovable. So one of the angles we're super interested in is this collaboration between product owners that can build part of the product in full code with Lovable. One of the angles we want to explore is the Lovable angle, with the integration with GitHub, and then the developer is using Cursor as well. So there's a lot of parallels that can be drawn from that. I guess the short answer, we're using it for everything, a little bit for everything, and even automations. Things like we have call recording bots that take the transcripts, give us summaries, help us keep in control of those notes, and really speed up that perception as well.
I'm really glad the AI bot haven't made it yet to podcast interviews, because this is one of the few calls I've had this whole week with no AI in the call, so that's enjoyable. What's the last question on this one, Miguel? How often do your customer actually require you to build AI features inside of the product that you're building?
Every conversation we have about new products involves AI. The AI question pops up, whether it's a very big part of the product or they come with an idea and they ask at the end, is there an AI angle that we can explore? Or this is often something that they don't really know yet. They want to explore and they will ask us for that insight. So I would say more than half of the tools that we have conversations around involve building AI into the product.
And Fred, coming back to you, in a great position to just witness the evolution of the whole no-code industry. How much of tsunami has AI been for the whole industry? Like, how much penetration do you see? Do you see the need to build AI features inside of Xano? Is every customer asking for it? What's your vision on how things have evolved over the past 2 years? And then we can explore a bit, what's for the future.
Good question. Honestly, it's a very good question, because I think most of the no-code solution was not prepared when the wave of AI coding came. Honestly, I mean, most of the people thought that the no-code, like it was before AI coding, stay like this for years, and finally it was so young and so quickly disrupted that it's super interesting. But for example, in the case of Xano, it was really an opportunity, not only to build with AI, but also to build for AI. Okay, that means first of all, build with AI. Xano One very quickly integrated the AI in the solutions. That means you can create all your workspace with AI. You can create your database with AI. It's amazing. You just have to say, I want to create an invoice application, and bam, 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 with Xano, it created the table and the field, and even it can create fake data. If you want to start to develop, you need some data just to make your test. So the AI was integrated very quickly, because we saw that like an opportunity to make the no code even more or less code, I want to say. And that's really and you can create many things, and the AI was integrated directly to Xano. So instead to be scared about it, we take it as a perfect match. And I think that was a game changer. And nowadays, that most of the people, I mean, as far as I see it today, it's almost impossible to create a full application only with AI without going in the code at a moment or another. As soon as you need to go in the code, that means that you have to know the code. So if you have to know the code, you go back to programmer and coder. Okay, so maybe it will change in the future. Now, except maybe a landing page, it's pretty hard to do everything with AI. But what is nice, for example, with Xano and some other no-code tools, is that you can create components with AI that is more a teeny frame. You can create a component and use it with your visual tools as any other component that come with your no-code stack. That's super interesting. So it's even faster for me, to answer your question. For me, AI for code is another way to do no code. So it's why I prefer to say modern programming, because it's many tools, and it's always like this for the programmer. You have tools on your desktop, you have library, microservices, API, and now you have no code and AI. So a good programmer will choose the good ingredients to make the best recipes as cheaper and quicker as possible. So this is new component, up to them to play with it. And why I say Xano is also building for AI, it's because now you probably heard about the MC and these new waves again and again. And that means today with Xano, you can build some solution to give to the AI, to your LLM, to use it as a part of your stack. So it's another huge opportunities As far as most of the people now used to use LLM and chat with your data. So Xano could be a very nice bridge for it.
Maybe just before we come back to MCP, because that's indeed the one of the big waves that we have to address. I wanted to come back to Miguel and because from what I understand, Fred, your take on vibe coding, which is one of the other buzzwords these days, is because you have the agent build and write code for you. Eventually, as soon as something doesn't work, or if you need to take a look at something, if you don't know the language that the agent picked, and you can pick the language, you can choose, okay, build me something in TypeScript, for example. But if you don't know how to read it, then you are not able to maintain it. So potentially that's still limiting. Miguel, what's your, like, you've said that you've been exploring with Lovable. What's your take on vibe coding? Like, I guess, I don't know a single developer who hasn't used vibe. Just to say, that's a piece of dirt. I'll never use it. But what's your take on this?
I'm on the other side of the aisle. I love everything about it. It is super fun in a way. And a lot of the senior developers and engineers that I've been talking to, even informal groups have been popping up to share techniques now. People that were sort of outgrowing, that were in a position of saying, oh, I understand technology, it comes in waves, and so they sort of all look the same a little bit. Now AI has them excited about technology again in a way that previous leaps haven't, at least recent leaps haven't. And it is because of vibe coding. And so I don't love the term vibe coding. I understand everyone uses it, but it's good enough to explain an idea. There are ways. So coming to the Lovable, I love the concept of Lovable, and I see a lot of parallels to a tool like Cursor, where you have a full-on IDE that is AI native, that is AI enabled.
Just for the people who are not engineers, IDE is basically the place where you can write the code and create your code files. And what's the take of Lovable versus
the
that?
Lovable is you have a chat, you get the result, and you chat until you get into iterate on the result, right? You ask for an app, shows you a page, etc. As a Cursor is the really big workhorse of the software engineering, where you take on full-on code bases to work on full code, has all the bells and whistles that helps you detect changes in your source code, etc. But comes AI enabled, which means that we also have this chat window that we can ask of questions of our code. We can ask it to generate code, changes to our code, and we can review very precisely all those changes. I feel like the principles that apply to both of them, to make both of them work well, are the same principles. So prompting is at the basis of all of it. If you, with Lovable as well as with Cursor, you get exactly the same experience. If you first broad strokes of a project, you go big and it does really well, and it goes like, whoa, this is fantastic. I just built a full-on system with one message or a couple of messages. But as you try to fine-tune what the small changes you want to make, that becomes harder because you have to be really expressive and really precise in what changes you're asking for. And it is a skill. It is a technique. It is a skill. It is a technique that you develop. The principles of good prompting allow you to get more bang for buck and also allow you to be more careful in your changes. So it allow you to direct it a little bit better in order to avoid, for example, in Lovable, you don't easily see the source code. You can, but you don't easily see the source code changes that are going to happen. On Cursor, you get that nitty-gritty comparison of this line changed to this one, or it added these lines, and you get to approve or disapprove. The same principles apply.
It's funny because I was actually last week I tested vibe coding for the first time. I was like, okay, like it's time. I need to try. I tried the Replit, the solution from Replit, and
very cool.
But it was very funny. So it starts. I have to pick my. It starts. I have to pick a code base. So like I'm already okay. Well, let's see. I know a bit of JavaScript, so I'm gonna say okay, TypeScript, good. I get it started, and then I realize okay, it's writing code. And it started telling me, oh, okay, I'm spinning up a server, I'm building my routes. And, I wanted to do something very simple. We're using a learning management system, which is called Thinkific, and they have some limitations on how many analyst positions you can have. So I say, oh, I'm going to build an app that gets data from the API from Thinkific, and that can allow me to just show that data to our, our company customers so I can show them things, And then it starts building a server, rules, and I'm like, there's an API, just, to use the API, call it, and just show things, And then, I started realizing there's so many things that happens. And then, when I show the screen and it doesn't work, then, I literally had to say, okay, let's start with this first page. This is the dashboard. The 4 data points in the dashboard has these 4 things.
Yes.
Look at the documentation. Don't use the GraphQL API. Use the REST API, because for this, the REST API is better. And literally, I had to take step by step. And what I realized is, A, I don't write TypeScript, so half of the errors I can't see. But B, it was already useful for me to know what an API is, because I could basically guide the agent into selecting which API to use for which problem. So at the end of the day, this is cool for having the feeling you can be something. And I think on front end, I don't know, maybe it's because I'm not a big design guy, but I was impressed. Like front end wise, okay, here, give me a graph. Like, you can you tell it what you want, it builds it for you. That's pretty awesome. No, all the logic wasn't necessarily working that fast. But then I realized, what I need is vibe no coding. Like, I need to just chat with something and it builds, a tool. But that tool is visual programming, so I can go and edit it and I can understand what it's done. Like, why don't we have a vibe no coding solution out there? What do you think, guys?
Yeah, no, I think we do. I don't want to make in opposition the no code and the vibes coding.
Yeah.
For me, this is the perfect match, because as you say, you can build very fast with the vibe codings, something that work, even maybe 80% of what you want to do, it's working, but you still have the 20% to do. Also, you want it will change in the times. You will make your product evolving with new features, whatever, how you do that if you didn't build it. So you can also use the vibe coding to add some new features. But there is something that I'm more concerned. It's about everything about security, for example. Okay, you have a tool that creates a million line of code for you, but you don't know exactly what's inside. For a corporate, it's a really risk. I can imagine tomorrow a corporate that lets AI building access to the corporate data, logic, like data from the customers. Sometimes it's very sensitive, just because vibe coding tools created all of it. Okay, so I want to say for a certain kind of project that it's not that big, that it's not that complicated, that there is no topics around sovereignty, security, compliance. Could be a good answer. But when it comes to more professional, whatever, it's not. But when again, I like and I love to use like code generator, live coding for a portion of my application. I think this kind of tools are very good also for optimizing your actual code. So for example, you write a function and you send to the AI and say, can you optimize my code? Can you rewrite it? Can you test it? What do you think about my algorithm? I think it's also another way to use the same tools that it's super efficient nowadays. Again, I think we should not make in opposition about the two approach.
Yep.
Vibe coding, no code, you can use together. At Xano, it's exactly what we are doing. We're using together, and that's the good solution. But also you can do everything with no code. You can do everything with code. You can do some things with vibes coding also. The best is to know how to use it, or to have some agencies that they know how to use it, the limitation of each approach, each task, and they do the best with that.
Is that something that you think is going to happen in the next years?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it will be like that for the and it's still like that in Xano. When you a new project, the first things they ask you, if can I build for you? What do you want to do today? And for sure, you will always have some people prefer to start from scratch, because if it take you more time to correct what the AI do, sometimes it's quicker to start from a blank page, a white pages. And but yes, I think this is the sense of the history, and probably maybe even more. Maybe you will just send your UI and your UX, and you will understand exactly what you want. It's still working pretty fine. You send your forms and you say, okay, make the logic behind the form. I just have to make a screen capture, and it's still working in some time.
Can I just say, even today we were running a workshop together, and we were live coding an example, and I couldn't find the textual description of the API. So I screenshotted the documentation, I put it into Lovable, and it went, oh, okay, I know how to work with this API now. And it kind of structured the form based on that, on those input information. And then I gave it, okay, this is the address for you to use. This is how to talk to the API. And it built that into the form. And so we quickly built out a very complete interaction with the backend and the front end, all mostly driven by these AI interactions.
Okay. And that raises actually a question for me, because you mentioned that already before, Fred, and now I'm jumping on that occasion because it's not often that I have two engineers who can answer like a question I have, a technical question. Why do we need MCP servers? Why can't the AI read the freaking API documentation? I'm like, I don't understand it. It's just, it's an LLM. It can read. Why can't it read the API documentation? Like, what's this? Or what am I missing, when I'm asking the question?
First of all, the MCP in general is a framework, or we can say specifications that tell to an AI model how to interpret and interact with a software system data model or endpoints or business logic safely and contextually. That's the big difference with the standard API. The API is actually, like you can find in the code industry, even in Xano, it serves a single task or a single endpoint. The MCP server, we serve as a logic orchestrator. I don't know if it's not that easy to explain, but it make a big difference. Okay.
But for example, what's the difference between MCP and the Open API, what is it, Swagger, the whole endpoints and what they do? It doesn't tell you exactly how to use it or what happens behind, or?
It doesn't give you the context.
Yeah,
okay,
exactly. That's and with the MCP, for example, you have data, you have logic that you build in Xano. You build your API to connect with many tools in the enterprise, but also outside the enterprise. But now you want to connect to your LLM and you want to talk with your data. You want to talk with your logic. Yeah. This where the MCP it start to be super useful. Let's take an example.
Yeah.
Tomorrow, when you go in an enterprise, you just onboarded as a new employee. You have many tools. You have HubSpot, you have Office, Excel, many tools, and then you need years to learn each tool, how you use it, you be trained, blah, blah, blah. Okay? Salesforce, SAP, that's big tools internally. Tomorrow, if all these tools are connected to the MCP, you can just open the chatbot and say, create for me, please, a new customers. You even don't know if it will be created in HubSpot or in Pipedrive or whatever tools. The LLMs through the MCP of each services will understand the context, will understand that you talk with the customers, that understand that you create a new customer. So you directly know that you have to use HubSpot for that, for example, and send an email to your boss to explain that you created it. So this is the difference. Miguel, you want to say something, I think.
I just wanted to double down on that context idea. There are big difference. You were talking about Swagger. Swagger gives you endpoints and how to use them. It doesn't explain why you would be using them.
MCP so basically,
does. MCP says an MCP server that takes notes. Literally talks to your Notion or your Obsidian notes or whatever. But it also can write. It can search your tools. It can write documents, but it can also answer questions about what's in there. If you have the Open API description, here's the endpoint to create a new note. Here's the inputs, and it should return something like this. If in MCP, you say, here's the function, here's the inputs, and you use this tool to create notes in my note system. And it gives you the opportunity to give it a set of rules on how to use it.
Okay, no, I get it. Yeah, that makes sense. It's actually now the MCP server. Like what makes me crazy now is like because everybody's going on MCP is basically the properly documented API documentation. I've been swearing every time I go, on an API documentation, it doesn't tell you half of what you need to do, why it's built, how it's built. They just say, okay, that's the endpoint, and it takes get, put, post, and that's it. Yeah. And basically MCP server is now it's basically now that we have AI and every developer is excited about AI, we just agree on the proper way of documenting our endpoints and whatever what we're doing.
And Open API does have places for you to put descriptions on what it does.
Nobody
So
puts
you
it.
could put more of that context, but nobody does.
Yeah,
There
interesting.
is actually there are projects that are trying to bridge the gap. I picked up the other day. There's an open source project to give you like an MCP to Open API bridge or proxy, where they automatically take an endpoint that has the documentation and they generate the MCP version of it, and allows you to kind of expand a little bit.
How difficult is it technically to generate an MCP? Like, can you easily programmatically like, or use AI to just, okay, like this is everything you've built, these are all your endpoint. Let me just like, what is an MCP server? Is it like text? Is it like, how does it look like? And is it difficult to build?
So in Xano, for example, in 15 minutes, if you are an existing project with your API endpoints, you can have your MCP server running. And it's why it's so popular nowadays, because it's finally pretty easy to integrate, and you're ready to expose your MCP to an LLM. And if we had time, I can show you, but I use Claude, for example, to talk with my data and my logic.
Yeah. And how technically difficult is that? Is that a lot of work behind to actually just use software and explain? And what's the format of an MCP actually? Is it just? I mean, I know it's a URL because I've used some, but I'd be curious what's there.
The setup is actually you give it a URL, but you also give it a few parameters like how to talk to it. And how to build it is actually how you would build any API. There are tools. So if you're going full code, if you're going Xano has a specialized screen where you can enable MCP for some functionality or the whole functionality, which is amazing. If you're going full code, it's essentially you're writing another web server. It's almost like a web framework that requires you to give you enough for you to give it enough information, set up enough things so that it outputs the correct things.
Okay,
does that make sense?
But that does that programmatically, or do you basically like you write some code?
You would code it. So essentially, if I was building, let's say I was building a custom MCP server for my notes on my Obsidian folder. Obsidian is a note-taking tool that has a Markdown that uses Markdown files as the saving format. So it's very easy to integrate with stuff like this. So if I'm building, let's say, an MCP server that can read and talk to my notes, I would start up a new, let's say, Node.js project and to use JavaScript or TypeScript, and I would pull in the SDK, for example. I could do Pure, but usually I would use any other framework to build another web framework to build faster. The company Anthropic that created the concept, that published in the initial version of MCP, they also released some libraries that you can use to kind of accelerate that. So there's the client side of MCP and there's the server side of MCP, and that's how you would do it.
Okay. Yeah, it's very close of what we are still doing today. When you come to MCP, you have the communication between the client and the server. You have the metadata with the context. You have the model entities, in general in a JSON file. You have the action or procedure, the guideline that you say, okay, I can or cannot define the context or access a context, and the authentications. So this is something that we still have before, and you exchange, you parse the question and the answer, and it's very scalable. It can be reused by multiple agents or LLMs across your stacks. So that's super interesting. It's not one-to-one, it's few-to-few. So you can interconnect. So that's pretty standard. And when it comes to Xano, it's still there. So you don't have to create any of these files. And that's pretty easy.
Maybe before we finish this, just a quick outlook on the future. What do you think are going to be the biggest change that we'll see this next year? And if you... Second question, if you had, first a business person, what would be the recommendation you would tell them in terms of what technical skills they should learn? And second, if you had someone who wants to become or who is a software engineer, what would be your recommendation of what they should learn? Let's start with Miguel.
I feel that naturally everyone is sort of inclined to feel the consensus that I'm getting in my networks is we already are getting a lot of AI-enabled tools which can look like a lot of things. It can just mean tools that have AI in the coding pipeline as part of one of the cogs that moves. Also, AI enhanced in the sense of talk to my data or interacting through chat with my app, with the functionality of my app. We're already seeing that. It's only going to be more present. And I see that happening for a few years. I feel like that's going to be the push.
Yeah.
However, I also feel like, and this is a big question mark for me, MCP is also a big changer in the sense of agents. I feel like we're going to have more and more, we're going to be building tools for agents and less for people, which is a bit of a question mark on what that looks like. Obviously, MCP is part of it, but I feel like, as in the past, sometimes you would be building tools, let's say for the travel and accommodation industry, you might build aggregators of information. Now, those aggregators of information, at the time, let's say 20 years ago, it would be maybe based on RSS or something like that. And it will allow RSS tools to talk to it, or it would expose later, it would expose an API. Now it's going to be more focused on enabling AIs to leverage that information in a secure way. Maybe that's going to just make the UIs more dynamic. One of the tendencies that I've seen is generative UI. So essentially, I haven't explored it much, but from what I can tell, and at least from my experiments with it, you are now at a moment where you can literally generate code for a specific answer. So the AI can think artifacts, right?
Yeah.
If you use ChatGPT, you ask for something and suddenly there's a customized UI for the thing you asked for, and it's unique to you. That's not possible. So let's say I asked for, hey, can you look for travel flights for me to go to Berlin? I don't live in Berlin, and also accommodation, and not just it can go maybe look at that information and then return like literally a book now button. Like if you like this, click here and book now. And that is a possibility. So that button gets generated dynamically. It wasn't pre-built by a developer. It wasn't a widget that was installed. It was generated for your answer.
Awesome.
So I feel like that is probably one of the interesting developments.
Okay. Before we go on to the next two topics, Fred, what's your view on what's coming next?
It's very hard to make prediction. The best way to, if you watch the video in 3-4 years, probably you say, well, so it's hard to make prediction. We can see like the Moore law. You know the Moore law. He made the prediction was good for for a time, but it accelerates. And I don't know if you know Raymond Kurzweil. That is make the theory of the singularity, where the AI will be more intelligent than the human. And it looks like we are close to it. I mean, closer to it. So I for sure the AI will take a lot of place everywhere, and especially when it comes to code and programs. So for sure, I agree with what Miguel said, that I think the UX will change a lot. That means maybe even the applications will disappear as we see today. I mean, applications that with button, form, fields, and like actually we still, when you look at the corporate application, it's like form and area, whatever. I feel and I believe that tomorrow you will just chat with your application. You will just maybe vocally or maybe like with a chatbot, like with ChatGPT. But everybody, even the kids, even the students now use ChatGPT like. So I believe that tomorrow probably application will disappear more or less, or it will be like a mixed interface. So I see a big change on the front side. About the human resources, also I see some change, because the programmer will not program the same, and the business logic will not using the app the same. So I see some mutation in that for the best, probably. And also the programmer will have to change. I don't know if tomorrow in the engineering school we will still learn to code. Maybe not. Maybe it will not be useful at the end. And probably it's a good thing also, because it will make it more accessible for for more people. And about the second question, um, something I like, I always wanted myself to democratize programming. Even if I'm a programmer, basically, I didn't tell you, but I wrote some books about Java, about the architecture. I wrote some book about developing for mobile applications. So I want to say I'm a pure developer. But even than that, I like the fact that it's democratized, that everybody can build their own solutions. And what I like, even if you choose Xano, but even if you don't choose Xano, you can choose other things to understand the concept. If the no-code stack in general that are very good, very quickly to learn the concept of programming. What is an API? What is a database, for example? What I like nowadays is that with all these stacks, you can learn the most important thing is the concept and the logic of programming. So I want to say, whatever the tools that you are choosing, if you want to start, take a serious one, go for it, and you can change easily after. But start with Xano is better.
Miguel, what's your recommendation to any business person that like what are your recommendation for getting into tech?
Getting into tech.
Getting into tech, learning technical skills.
Sure.
What should I do?
No, I understand. It hasn't. So just for reference, for the past 15 years, I have not recommended going into a CS degree unless you want that degree. I believe there are programs that fast track you into the knowledge of knowing how to be a coder. Let's call it like that. Maybe making a distinction between a coder and an engineer. A coder can generate code, can create code. An engineer understands systems and how they and their interactions. So my first suggestion is get that coding functionality first. In this case, what that means for the world of today, get that prompt engineering in, get that understanding of AI tools. Whether you go in the direction of no code or full code, it is important to get a few apps out of you. It's important to understand that what you bring from your past is actually very relevant and very important. So I've mentored a few people transitioning from other careers into software engineering, non-traditional CS paths. And I always find the one thing that really connects everyone is this desire of improvement, growth mindset that really enables them to bring more to the table than what they left behind. So they actually don't leave behind anything. They bring all that knowledge in to add to their new skill set. So focus on getting those tools out of the way. The higher order thinking is going to come with time, persistence, and building things. As you build things, those higher level, higher order thinking problems also click in. Later on, you will have opportunities to kind of refine architecture, understand what each piece of the puzzle is. That all comes through experience. There are ways to fast track it. My recommendation is get your hands dirty in building.
Okay. And Fred, for you, what would be your recommendation for, like, especially since you've written books on the topics for software engineers and for like computer scientists, or let's say coders? What's the one? If somebody, let's say you have a son and he's in age of choosing his path and he wants to become an engineer or a software engineer, what would be your recommendation?
To become a software engineer?
Would you say you should not, or like, or if you say like that's a path, like what would you recommend?
That's a good question. So if I had a recommendation, would be find the right school that with the right teacher that understood that today something changed and you can make the best of it. Honestly, developers with AI and no code stack could make like amazing the best of it. So just find the right school. And if you want to do that, you should do that. It's amazing to build. Honestly, it's something like to build from scratch with your own hand or voice today. It's amazing. I started to be a programmer because I loved to build. And so I can be a constructor because I'm really bad in that. So I became a developer and I developed some game, some mobile application. It's so exciting to see the people even using your old app. So to your son, you can say, go for it, just choose the right path.
Miguel, would you have the same recommendation to anyone who wants to start a career in software engineering?
Yeah, I feel like we were answering different questions, right? Earlier. For me, a business person getting into tech is a career transition.
Yeah, for sure. No, I'm referring to someone who wants to become a software engineer, but let's say, they're young enough. It's that transition, that's formation years of what they want to become.
Yeah. I would, oddly, I would actually tell them the same thing. I would tell them get building. Like the tools now enable you to try now. My kid, for example, I had this scenario not long ago. My kid, my middle kid is 7 years old, and he was there in school learning Scratch. Scratch is like a visual programming language built like a game. At least there, it's Scratch Junior, which is a version that is actually just a game of logic, like moving blocks and enabling the cartoons to move in a certain way or go through a puzzle, a labyrinth. If that keeps you excited, go find the next thing to build. And the next thing to build that excites you might be more complex. It might be now he's very into Minecraft. So, okay, let's build. It's not code, but it's building. So what excites you to build something in Minecraft? What is the thing that keeps you excited? So keep chasing that excitement. What is the next thing that is exciting in this path? I try to guide, obviously, it's my kid. I try to guide in ways that I feel are productive, but that will be very subjective. I say, to become a software engineer later on in life, they want to keep chasing that enthusiasm, the thing that keeps that spark alive. It's going to be building robots. It's going to be building websites. It's going to be building games. It's going to be later building rockets. I don't know. It's going to be later training their own AIs. But it is the building, the active building that keeps you interested and focused. That's going to enable the desire to go through later a formal education if that's what they would be looking for.
That's awesome. What I really love about this conversation is both of you ended on the idea that it's about building. So I'm so happy that the next time we see each other is at the Builders Club conference, where it's all about building solution in tech or building companies. But I agree with you. I think the building is the most exciting part of things. And I think no matter what the technology is, if you love how to build and if you love how to learn how to build, then you will move and you will evolve along the trends and the technologies. So thanks both of you. It was super insightful. I learned a lot. I think I finally got why we are MCPs and how they're built. So that's really a win for me. I hope to see you soon.
Cool.
And thanks again for joining me.
Thank you very much.